Yep.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that and how that came about?
So the short version, Scott called me and said, "Hey, we need to do something about the fires in Lahaina."
Yeah.
And 30 seconds later, after I said, "Sure, let's do it," Scott had the signal room stood up.
Yeah.
We started
One
bringing.
part about that too, I just want to go back is I don't know if I should say the guy's name out. He was involved with, he understood pineapple. He reached out to me on text and he said, would you be willing to talk to these guys, Maddie and Zane, who live in Hawaii? They're going through it. They have an amazing family, but they're doing that local catalyst thing. Could you talk to them and maybe kind of take a pineapple type approach to what they were doing? And of course I did. We did a hasty little podcast with them that we put out there that I think was pretty timely. But then my next thought was to get you involved and, build the initial signal room and then turn you loose to do your thing, which.
Yeah. So we got the signal room stood up. We added the usual suspects of movers and shakers from the Afghan and Ukraine disasters.
Yeah.
And then Justin and I did what we do. We hit the ground. We ran right towards the fire. Maybe not the best choice of words right now.
Yeah.
But it was a little.
No, I mean, that's absolutely what you did. Absolutely.
So we got on the ground out there with Maddie and Zane's parents, actually. They gave us a place to stay, and we started identifying as many local leaders from the grassroots level as we could. We helped amplify their voices, connect them to resources that they need. Will Kane from Fox News has been involved since the beginning. Absolutely amazing human being. We've got an airlift about to take off, and I don't even know what today's date is. I'm running on fumes. But the 18th, it's flying from Vegas.
Can you believe that?
I know. It's insane.
It's crazy. And Will Kane had a connection. He's a host on Fox News and has a connection to Hawaii, but also has a lot of connections, as you could imagine, as a host of a major news organization. And Will and I have known each other for years around the Afghanistan issue, and he contacted me about the Hawaii thing, and I just asked him to come into the room. And you were already in the room. Amy was in the room. Scott Z was in the room. A lot of these shakers and movers, not just at the local level like Maddie and Zane,
right?
But all and the chaplain. I'm trying to remember his name.
Sean, Pastor Sean.
Pastor Sean. Yeah. But then also bringing in these stickers and movers who work at the operational and strategic level, like Amy, like Scott Z, who are great at organizing, and then Will. We bring Will in. And in the Starfish and the Spider, Brofman refers to a guy like Will as what he calls a champion. And a champion is in these networks is someone who has access to resources, authority, people, or information. In other words, they swing a big stick and they can make things happen with one move.
And he definitely did just that.
And he did. And then you have people like Amy who are kind of a catalyst organizer, but when you put them together, and you put them in the same room, it's amazing how that network flattens and you cut through the bureaucracy.
That's absolutely right, which is why Jess and I always like to get on the ground as quickly as we can in situations like this, is to remove bureaucracy, because as you know, I can't stand bureaucracy.
It's terrible. It's a manifestation of unadulterated fear.
I love that. Yeah, we like to be able to move nimbly, quickly, make decisions fast, remove roadblocks. And this model, I guess we could call it, of a catalyst that you're describing, is something we've used time and again, not just in situations like this right here, but globally to fix problems.
And strategic problems. Yes. And this is where I think Ben and I wanted to get on and talk with you guys about, is that that's not an accident. At first, it kind of seemed like serendipity that this happened, but I saw versions of this with the Village Stability Operations Program in Afghanistan as we built these networks. And in Truth in Lending, I learned a lot of this from Scott Miller and Stan McChrystal, and then we kind of put the SF take on it and built these networks. But then I saw it self-organize in these various groups, not just Pineapple, many groups around the Afghanistan problem, and it just kept going. And I think the good news for anybody watching this is you hear Ben and I all the time talk about the upswing that Robert Putnam wrote about in the early 1900s, where Alcoholics Anonymous and the Rotary Club and the Junior League formed around these hard problems when nobody else was coming from the government. And you said something today that I thought was very profound, was that you said all that happened in the early 1900s and it was amazing, but they didn't have something that we have.
They didn't have immediate access to communication. They did not have immediate access to information. So internet and social media, I think, will be a catalyst.
Like what we're doing right now?
Exactly. Yeah, great. That's a great example.
Yeah.
This next upswing, I think we're seeing, the world is ripe for it. There are problems everywhere that feel insurmountable. You have countless people that want to stand up and do something about it, but they just don't know where or how.
Yeah.
And I think the more we can get messages like this out to the masses, the more people that share these, comment on them, or actually pick up a hammer and swing it and do something about a problem, we're going to realize that it was not serendipity that we were able to pull off what we did with the Afghan evac. There is a method to it. It can be.
It really is. There's a science to it.
There's a
it's
science
not
to it,
just
yeah.
art. It's not just instinct. There's a science to this. And we're becoming more and more conscious of it as we rep it. And what I would say to anybody watching this, who you see a major problem around you in your arena and you see that nobody's coming, is to think that you absolutely can affect this. You absolutely can bring strategic impact to bear. But it's all in the network that you build around that problem and your willingness to get out of the way as those relevant players. We had a saying that Scott Miller used to say that I really loved. And he said, in the network that crashes and swarms on problem sets, is if you're not relevant to the problem in that moment, get out of the way and have your ego let you do that. And that's what you ingested. That's amazing to me, is when y'all rolled into Lahaina, dude, you're like walking around with your camera, giving us a real-time feed on what's going on with housing, right? But then once you got movement on it, you stepped out of the way. That takes, you got to really keep the ego in check for that. How do you do that?
Well, all right. So having been homeless and hopelessly addicted helped me get rid of my ego a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is you've got to. It doesn't matter who gets credit. As long as the work's getting done. And so when you fully believe that and you accept it, and obviously you have to get credit for some things to be able to raise money to do more good, blah, blah, blah. But when you accept that it doesn't really matter, the second you stop being useful or part of a solution, it's easy to step out of that. I have a life to live. I have 8 kids. I have all of this going on. This house is a great example of that. I would love to be here and be part of every bit of it. But we got Josh who's on the other side of this camera. Him, Chris, David, they don't need me here. I'm in the way. Right. So the second I'm no longer of use, just step out of the way and let people who are experts manage it locally at a grassroots level.
So good, man. I think that's the essence of leadership through these self-organizing systems, is catalysts who know the problem well enough to put the right people around it, connect them, and then get out of the way so that the relevant people can crash on it. And then you become like cheerleader in chief, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And tell the story.
Yeah.
Right. And then go find the next problem. So anybody watching this, again, if you're looking at a problem set in your arena and you feel like it's too big and nobody's coming, there are some excellent precedent setting events happening right now in real time. And this guy right here is leading the charge on a lot of them. We talk about the human connection aspects of a lot of, and the mechanics of it on the Rooftop podcast, and the Starfish and the Spider, recommended for anybody that's looking at deep, wicked problems that are going to involve a community of interest or practice to get after it. It's a great book to understand catalysts and champions.
Boom. It's a great spot to end.
All right.
Love it.